Good day and welcome to HVAC 350. My name is Joe Pacella, Associate Professor at Ferris State University. This lecture is going to be on Schedule of Values, relatively short lecture. Schedule of Values is a document put together once a project has been received by the mechanical contractor, used to validate billing. It will take the estimate that we use, break it down by division. If you recall from earlier in the semester, we had 16 division format and a 40+ division format. Inside each one of those division numbers, things are broken down by category. And what this schedule of values does is it breaks the entire project down by individual categories so that the superintendent, general contractor, or construction manager on the project can validate that we have a certain amount of work done that we say that we have done to protect the owner's interests so they don't overpay for items that aren't completed on a project. A lot of words just said there, but it's really a straightforward document. So what it's going to do is it's going to outline the sum of all the projects, all the individual items, and come up with a total contract amount. And it's a basis for submitting and reviewing the progress payments for the owner. And it really isn't time related like the schedule, but quite often you'll see a schedule of values built around a schedule so that as the project progresses through, you may see some items in there that mirror the schedule well. When we talk about the schedule of values, once we have our original project schedule created, somebody has to break out the estimate itself and as it was originally laid out in our schedule or the schedule that we were given. So once we have that estimate, if we recall it in the estimate, we had labor and materials for each line item in there. And what we're going to do, or what we have to do, is to compile the different line items and put them in the division numbers, individual division numbers, in order to create this document. So when we look at a schedule of values, one part of it is called there's an upfront cost to do a project, and part of that is called a thing called mobilization. Now, mobilization is the cost that the contractor is going to incur just to get a project started from the beginning. Okay, so when that happens, there's different costs that we could have, quite a few different ones. They could be temporary facilities that we might have to have for the project. It's going to be a permit fee, cost to get materials on the job site. We've got to possibly get some security fencing going on, and this is before we even start working down there. But we have some of these items, temporary power that we might have to have down to the building, any performance or payment bonds, any permitting. I didn't put submittals on this list, but submittals should be included also. So that could be, again, what a submittal is information that we send to our mechanical engineer of record on the project, and they approve of what we're going to put into the building prior to us ordering that. So there's all kinds of different items that we'll have in there, plus we'll have some costs from office personnel to help us get our project started. In addition, we could see some general condition items that might have to be part of mobilization, which would be certain supervisory personnel. We may have to do some demolition, temporary cleaning, dumpster, but we may have to get some items down to the job site prior to us even getting started. And any monthly billing items such as portable restroom facilities or cranes or any items that might have to go down to the job site that we have to have in place prior to us even beginning working. So that would be upfront costs that we'd have on a project. We have to identify those and put them into the mobilization portion of it. Now, mobilization, there's no hard set number on this, and it's pretty much what you can get away with. Sounds like the wrong item, but what we try to do is we try to put a higher number that we can, as the highest number that we can in the mobilization part. When we look at a project, 2 to 3% is common, but I always tried to front load that a little bit. In other words, put the highest amount of money that I can in there. When we look at contracting, it's kind of a strange business. We go through and we do a lot of this work. We wait for it to be justified that we actually did it before we get paid to doing it. So we're always extending, you want to call it our credit, extending our monies every month. We pay the people that are working for us every week. We don't get paid for their work until the next month. Equipment could be the same thing, but usually that's spaced out enough where by the time we get something delivered, we're able to get paid for that prior to the bill coming for that, but that doesn't happen all the time. But when we think about it, again, we have all kinds of incurring all kinds of expenses on a job site, and quite often we have to wait until the next month in order to get paid for the fruits of the work for the prior month. So 2 to 3% is pretty common. A rule of thumb that I came up with my mentors was never to ask more than 5%. You can try to do that, and the range that you'll see is 1 to 9%, but 5%, they pretty much, it's not a problem to get. If you have a very complex job that takes a lot of effort on design for submittals, you might be able to get more money if we have to do some design work on drawings and submit those drawings into the engineer for approval. We'll be able to get more monies with that. But usually 5% is pretty standard. 9% of the entire project, that's quite a bit. If you're looking at $1 million project, 9% of that's a lot of money. But depending on what's got to happen with that, what kind of work has got to get done on the front end. In addition, on the schedule of values, we have different administration fees. And when we look at administration fees, we never break those out, but those are real fees that we have there. So don't you will not see an administration fee broken out on a schedule of values, although we definitely will be actually seeing those costs coming in. Another item you might see on a schedule of values is a benchmark payment. And a benchmark payment would be a payment that's associated with a milestone in the project. And a milestone, again, is an item that's in a schedule that cannot be moved for any reason. So once a certain milestone happens, once they get the, for example, if we have the floors poured in a building, or if we have all of the work that has to get done in a certain area of a building where it's stopped by a milestone, or it said it will be done on this certain date, we might be able to get payments just based on benchmarks with that. And when you do those, we round up those numbers, and we include the administration and office salaries for that portion of the project. Now, the real big deal with when we look at payments too is, as long as our schedule of value payments add up to 100% of the contract sum, it doesn't really matter how they're broken out. We try to be as honest and straightforward as we can with them, and I'm going to have you guys do that based on the actual information on a project to make a schedule of values for the class. But realistically, we don't have a line item in there that says mobilization when we do our estimate. So when we start taking and breaking these numbers apart, it's hard to go dollar to dollar on there. We just do the best we can with that. Another item we look at with front-loading a schedule of values could be major equipment purchase. Now, sometimes when we purchase equipment, usually the equipment is purchased and it's either shipped right away or it's set for manufacture and delivered prior to when we need to install that. So if it's going to be purchased right away, then it has to be shipped somewhere. It's got to be stored and insured for that. When that happens, again, keep in mind we have to store it and insure it, but sometimes what we can do if we want to front load our schedule of values is get the owner of the company to pay for all of the materials on the project. When I started off a company, the day that we started the company, we signed a contract for just over $300,000 worth of work with one project. And when we did that, we started a company. Credit is a big deal with a company. So what I talked to the owner of the project into doing is to trust us to pre-purchase all the equipment. So what we did as far as a mobilization fee, one of the things I put in there was a fee for all of the equipment on the project, because it helped our company out because I got to keep the profit on the equipment and use that to get our company moving and to use those monies wisely. But it also allowed, when you do pre-purchase products, you can get a discount on the equipment. So the owner actually got the equipment a little bit less expensive than they would have if they would have purchased it later in the job. They were going to use it anytime. If they have the financial wherewithal, they sometimes would take advantage of that. And that's one way where you could front load the schedule of values. Now, this last screen here for this lecture is really just a sample schedule of values. And what this sample shows us here, this could be for an entire project. And you can see it starts with performance bonding, startup and mobilization. And this is the general conditions of the project itself. Then you can see different sections. This would be the old 16 division system. You can see that we have mechanical mobilization and HVAC mobilization at 15,000 and 15,001. Some demolition. We can see in here we've got, air terminals, which would be VAV boxes. So you can see VAVs. We have labor of $5,700 and materials of $3,400, which makes the total VAVs worth $9,140 for this project. So if, for example, someone wanted to go ahead and say that we were 100% done with the VAV boxes, we could easily justify to say that we should receive $9,140 in cost for those boxes if they were done in one paying cycle. In other words, done within 1 month. So hopefully that makes sense to you there. We're going to go ahead and we're going to break down in a future lecture for the assignment. You're going to break down how to do a schedule of values. Again, the intention of this lecture was just to talk about what a schedule of values is and why we have to do that. So thank you and have a great day.